We signed Chris Manhertz yesterday and waived tight end Michael Agnew. Two players, Austin Brown and Lawrence Virgil, were put on injured reserve. Probably a little bit more third down work today. We'll get some more red zone as the week progresses, but we've got 4 pretty good days here. I thought that obviously the weather cooperated, and we got some good competitive teamwork. Any questions?
Sean, Manhertz, the new tight end, is kind of a weird background. Didn't play football until recently. How did you guys find out about him? Or?
Well, he's a guy that Buffalo had released. He's athletic, he's big, and so we brought him in we'll make sure either yesterday or the day before for a workout. And real athletic. I mean, when you see his size and stature, obviously he's got a lot of things he's got to learn, but the workout was pretty impressive.
At this point, typically with roster cuts coming a few days away, how much of your all's roster is set right now?
Well, we've got a week before we start the first cut down. The message, you guys hear me say this all the time, the message to these guys, and it's important that they don't get caught up into trying to count the numbers or look at their depth chart. The week we had versus New England last week was a great example because 31 other teams are looking at this group of players, and we're looking at 31 other teams, and so you're constantly competing. If it's a running back with the other running backs in the league, not just the ones on this roster. But I would say it's not like Mickey and I have sat down and said, all right, these are givens. I mean, we certainly go through scenarios and begin to put together rough lists, but there's a lot that's undecided right now. There's a lot that's undecided, and it's important. This week is important, and this weekend's game is important for a lot of these players.
When you get to this week, have you ever moved a player off, or how often would you move a player off the roster, and then you get to the third preseason game, which is obviously very important, and they have a good performance? Is it move them back on, or is it something that just varies day to day? You can't, how do you all?
What do you mean move them off?
Like
we're not sitting in there where they're off.
You don't have a 53-man roster.
No,
on and off. It's
no.
just like a day-to-day evaluation.
Periodically, I might say to Mickey, hey, today give me 6 receivers. Or he might say the same thing, or I might, but it's not like set where we're moving magnets. It's too early. I mean, it really is right now. This whole week's important. The game coming up is important. That begins to take place, next week when we have to make decisions.
With Joe Morgan, have you seen that consistency you're looking for from the practice fields to the game experiences?
I would say the last couple of weeks we've seen his speed, which is encouraging. I thought at the Greenbrier we saw, he had a handful of practices where it seemed like he was running real well. So it's just putting it on the field, and part of it's getting those opportunities, those touch opportunities as a receiver that sometimes you can go in a game and maybe not get as many. But I think, listen, he's doing well. He's competing hard. There's a group of those guys at that receiver position, back to your question, Catherine, that are all fighting for spots.
Sean, how do y'all coach the wheel route? I mean, everyone runs a pick type play to not get called like interference when you see the tight man coverage and you want to get that rub. Is it a case of point where there's a technique, maybe you look back at the quarterback?
You get a yard. The first thing you do is you get a yard so the outside receiver can come flat and technically block that player inside a yard. Now, more often than not, that player's not at a yard when you're running that route because the inside receiver he's covering. So we try to drive hard and really just kind of plant our foot like you would be rebounding, and then the number 2 receiver has got to set that up. But I think the body mechanics of number 1, the outside receiver, is important. If it looks like you're trying to, then you probably get called. But if you can kind of set your feet first, if you can kind of go in there, and then you have a better chance of getting away with it.
Yeah, just like the Ingram that Cooks was maybe.
I thought it was pretty clean.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was pretty clean.
Sean, back on the earlier question. Do you have certain standards on this first cut, like say giving veterans the benefit of the doubt? And since you play your regulars are supposed to on Sunday about 3/4 away, is there anything a guy can do in that fourth quarter Sunday to get on or off?
Yeah, I mean, I think that number one, to your first question, there aren't any general rules of thumb that we try to follow with regards to experience or no experience. We really try to trust our gut with where we see the roster and the players and the depth chart. How long we play the first group, the old rules of, preseason would be you come back in the second half. I don't know that we'll do that. We'll see. But to your last question, I would say yes. I mean, anytime in this game, and I've seen it happen in the last game, there'll be a guy that comes out and does some things that are really good. And, so I would say, look, making a roster doesn't just happen in the preseason first or second game. It happens in the third and fourth game. That evaluation obviously has to keep going for us. We have to keep paying attention. And we would sit in a meeting and say, hey, we need to see more of these two players earlier in this game so we can gather more information. That would be a conversation we would have. We need to see these three guys play more early so we can clear up that position group.
How much of an emphasis is there going to be on getting a better pass rush the rest of the preseason, and where do you see that being right now?
Well, I think it's a work in progress, but certainly it is a point of emphasis. And, whether you're getting it from your four-man rush or whether you have to get it from pressure, but it's something that we're working on.
Coach, along the lines of what you were just saying, did that have anything to do with Pierre Warren? I think we saw him with the first team maybe for the first time all camp. Does he need some of those prominent looks?
Well, he would be – there's real good competition at safety. So, yeah, there's certain players there that both at strong and free that we need to give them work and get a chance to sort through some decisions there. Receiver, the same thing would apply. I think it would apply some in the defensive line. And, so there's a handful of position groups where you may look at it and say it's stacked up or there's a log jam. So we got to get those guys more playing time.
Is that something he earned in particular with, I know he had the interception in the game, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's really regards, Mike, back to what I'm saying here. In order to get a better feel for where Pierre's at or where Kenny's at or where Jamarcus Sanford's at or where Vinny's at, it would behoove us then to get them more work earlier in the game so we can get more film to evaluate.
Sean, I know you talk tempo a lot. Is that like, do you want to make the defense uncomfortable, maximize the clock? I mean, just get into a flow? I mean, what do you
I think the reason we talk tempo is to keep the defense off balance and certainly have ability at the line of scrimmage with time to change plays or if we want to change plays. That's kind of been a strength of ours, in and out of the huddle, up and down, and kind of stressing, a defense and forcing them to get lined up. That way Drew's got a better chance probably to change or maybe re-identify someone in protection.
Are you looking to get in and out of the huddle like in a certain amount of time? Is there anything like that?
I would say when we're operating pretty well, I mean, it's north of 11, 12 seconds when he's breaking the huddle. I would say it's probably more in the 15-second, 17-second range. But just as important are the substitutions, just as important is I just don't like it when we're just kind of meandering up to the line of scrimmage and the clock's bleeding down at 8, 7. Now you're kind of stuck, if you're the quarterback. So we've always tried to be a lot quicker than that.
Do you think your team has adjusted well back to the New Orleans conditions?
There's still boxes in there. Guys are unpacking, but I thought the weather today was pretty good, all things considered.
The defensive backs were pretty good today. A lot of guys getting hands on balls.
Third down, so you're really hoping that we're contesting all throws.
But you've had a lot of guys get a lot more reps. Second string, third string guys get a lot more reps with the guys injured. And what have you seen from them?
I think, look, the whole process a week ago was helpful. When you looked at the secondary, when we were practicing with New England, you're seeing Stanley get more work. You're seeing Swan get more work. You're seeing the safeties. you're seeing a lot of those guys that are competing for playing time getting the reps. Now, all of a sudden Keenan's back, and there'll be a handful of these guys that are gradually working their way back into the lineup, which is good. But it happened to us a couple of years ago at receiver where, all of a sudden Stills and Toon that one preseason were getting an inordinate amount of work because of some injuries to veteran players. So the same thing in the secondary. I think it's benefited some of those guys.
When you see no sacks after 2 preseason games, is that an accurate reflection of what's been going on, or have there been some positives that you've seen?
Well, I mean, in practice, there's certain things we've seen, but if you just go by, here's 2 games that we played, and we've had some hurries, some quarterback pressures, but nonetheless, statistically, there still haven't been any. It's something you got to pay attention to. Now, the good news is we're halfway through the preseason, and it's something we can continue to work on. All right, thanks.